Hey there, thank you so much for joining me again. This is episode 3 in my series looking at how you can create your own playback template with Berlin Free Orchestra and how you can do it with channel switching instead of key switching. So this is really designed for composers and orchestrators who want to get great mock-up results reliably out of Dorico. And if you find very mysterious to understand how endpoints and expression maps all work in Dorico, that's really what this is coordinating, is a sort of an overarching unified theory of how you can use any library, not just Berlin Free Orchestra, with Dorico in order to get reliable results every time. Now, in this episode, I'm going to be looking at the wind section, and we're still using the same principles, which is MIDI ports are used to address specific instruments. MIDI channels are being used to address specific articulations. And then MIDI CC values, in this case, MIDI CC 70, which is the default in the SINE player, but may be different in other players. MIDI CC values are being used to switch between variations. So, for example, you might have a channel that would switch. The channels would switch major articulations like spiccato and staccato and portato. But you might use a MIDI CC to control an add-on for something like consordino, which would apply to all three, right? You wouldn't want to have a unique address for every possible variation of pizzicato. You just want to have pizzicato, and then pizzicato could either be straight pizzicato or consordino pizzicato or tremolo pizzicato or whatever. Those would be add-ons, and we control those with MIDI CCs. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we're going to dive in, look a bit more at how I'm connecting the wind ensemble in the Berlin Free Orchestra with VE Pro. So let's dive in here. And what I've got actually is just one instance of the Vienna Ensemble Pro plugin. Right here, it's connected to the BFO winds. That's over here in BFO winds here in my Vienna Ensemble Pro, VE Pro. And we've got these instruments. We've got piccolo, flute, oboe, English horn, which is really nice for a free orchestra, clarinet, bass clarinet, bassoon, and contrabassoon. And something to take note of is that the clarinet and the flute both have true legato in this library, which is really pretty nice. So let's scan this out and take a look at our wind section, because this is where my planning always begins, is what articulations do I really need? What instruments do I need? Again, instruments are ports and articulations are channels. So when I want to fill out this spreadsheet over here, the first thing I want to look at is what are my instruments? Because that's how many ports I'm going to need. So let's go ahead and fill that out first. We've got piccolo, flute, oboe, clarinet. Before that, we've got English horn. Then we've got clarinet. Then we've got bass clarinet. And I'm just filling this in so that I know I have a record of how many ports I need, and I'm starting the planning process for my wind ensemble. 7 is a bassoon, right? And then we've got a contrabassoon in here as well. So having a contrabassoon and a bass clarinet and an English horn in this free orchestra is really, really pretty nice. Of course, this library doesn't have a lot of round robins or velocity layers, so it's still quite limited. It obviously doesn't have very many articulations. But speaking of articulations, let's take a look at what articulations it does have. What we see is that the flute does have legato, so does the clarinet. But everybody else just has staccato and sustain. That's it, right? So over here, I would plan that out, and I would say, okay, well, I do need legato. I'm going to put that on channel 2. That's becoming my standard, right? And so I need natural on channel 1, legato on channel 2, staccato on channel 3. I don't have any variations here. I don't have consordino or anything like that. So I don't need any add-ons at this point. So coming back to Dorico, I'm going to load up my expression map. And what we'll see is I actually have the same expression map configured for every single wind instrument here. And if I open up that expression map, take a look inside, we'll see that we have legato, natural, and staccato. Natural is on channel 1. We got legato on channel 2, and then staccato on channel 3. It rearranges these just for alphabetical order. Now, in past videos in this series, I have touched on these condition-based bass switches. These are also functioning as bass switches, and I might go ahead at this point and start integrating those into my planning document so you understand what they're for. So this is D. I'm going to zoom in here so you can see what I'm typing. I've done this many, many times, so I kind of have it by memory. That's long. I do medium, SH for short, and then very short. And these correlate to condition lengths of very long, long, medium, short, and very short. All right. And these are all going to go out channel 1. Why? Because the D here stands for detached or détaché, which is always going to be the natural sustain. I might create another series where it's tilde L underscore whatever, and that L would represent legato, in which case these would all be on channel 2. But for right now, I'm just doing it with channel 1. And I do need to pick some CC70 value, and I'm generally just going to go with 0. And you'll see that for the main articulations, the CC70 is always set to 0. But for these duration or condition-based, you can see the condition down here. For these ones, I do have a CC70 value of 1 through 5, right? So back in my planning document, I'm going to go ahead here and I'm going to say, okay, very long is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That means that if I send data out from my expression map on any channel, any port, and the value of CC70 is 5, then it should switch to whatever CC5 is on that channel. CC5 on channel 1 back in my VE Pro instance here. Let's look at flute. So here on channel 1, CC1 is equals to a sustain. Now, if I had a more expansive library, obviously the Berlin Free Orchestra is relatively limited. If I had a more expansive one, maybe I have some playable runs techniques or some ostinato samples, some different kinds of staccatos, then I could switch those up here. I like using this approach of assigning a CC value, an add-on value. Actually, it's not an add-on value here. It is a bass switch, but I like assigning the CC here to something sort of constant and sort of fixed, written in stone, so to speak. And then back in VE Pro or wherever my library is, that's where I decide which articulation is going to be triggered there. In other words, this approach of having these CC values written in stone rather than different per instrument or different per library means that I can always just know that the CC value of 3 is always going to be medium notes, like basically quarter notes. And then I can look at my available articulations that are available in that library, and I can see, oh, you know, a portato short might be good for that, or maybe I want more emphasis, a marcato short, and I can switch them. It's very modular. I can come in and change that configuration at any time to get a different feel without having to go through and rewrite my music, which I really, really like. So hopefully this explains a bit more about how I would go about planning the ports and then also planning the channels and the bass switches for the wind section. I don't have any add-ons here, so that's why that's empty. And then back in Dorico, I have built out my expression map based on everything in my spreadsheet. CC70 value of 0 is just the default. So instead, you know, like a long here, a detached long will be CC70 value 2 on channel 1. But how do I get just a regular sustain? Well, I have to send CC70 value 0. And you can see that is how I have things configured here. I always have a CC0 value is like whatever that basic articulation is, whether it's legato or it's staccato, whatever it is. 0 is always kind of like the basic articulation. And then I can have condition-based articulations within that bass switch if I need them, okay? So hopefully that helps you understand a little more deeply how I'm using condition-based switches, how I'm planning by looking at the library, identifying what bass switches, bass articulations I need, figuring out how many instruments there are or ensembles, how many ports do I need, and then configuring everything in VE Pro under an instrument instance, a family instance like winds or brass or strings. And then the next video, I'm going to get into percussion. We're going to talk a little bit about how you could set up percussion with a percussion map, which is fundamentally a different approach to expression maps. But at this point, you should be quite well versed in how my structure is working. And in the next episode coming up, I am going to talk about percussion. Now, if you're new to the channel, you found this very helpful, please do like it. Helps me surface the video to a larger audience. Please subscribe because I'm live stream twice a week, and I'm doing these videos on Dorico and Cubase all the time. I'm a working composer, and the knowledge that I try to share and the community I'm building is all oriented around the kinds of common problems and challenges we all face, and I'd love to have you on the channel. All right, so that's where I'm going to wrap it up today. Thank you so much for supporting me, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.